right now is your present tense, okay? Now, I don't explain this well, so follow me. Right now is the present. In a little while, this stage of your life will be in the past tense. Okay, you got it? Right now it's the present, woohoo, okay? But eventually, this stage of your dating life becomes part of your past. And here's the thing that a lot of married people around you, nobody told them, so I'm giving you a heads up. Your past will show up in your future. It's pesky, it's irritating, it won't go away, it's a gnat. But eventually in your future, your past, in fact, this present that will become your past is gonna show up in your future. Did you follow any of that? Okay, and see what happens. Married people didn't know this, but now you're gonna know this. Married people thought that once they got married, it was like a new beginning and a brand new day, and we did the wedding in the morning, to emphasize that, and the past is the past, and this is a brand new thing, and we're moving on, and we're cutting all our ties with the past. That's what they thought, because nobody told them what I'm telling you. What they didn't know is this, that their present that became their past showed up in their future. Okay, you're not getting it. So let me try to explain it this way. Sometimes people accuse me of not being a deep preacher, not being like, he's not very deep, he's not very deep. And the reason they don't think I'm deep, I understand this, and that's okay. The reason they don't think I'm deep is because I'm clear. Okay? Because in our culture, no, that's okay. In our culture, we think the more confusing something is, the more intelligent and intellectual it is. So we go to lectures and we go to churches and we go, oh, I have no idea what that means, but that's deep. He's so deep, okay? So I just made it a commitment a long time ago. I never want to put on one of these and get on one of these if I can't be clear. But for those of you who think, no, it's got to be confusing to be deep and you're way too smart to go with something that's simple. Last night as I was getting ready for today, I came up with a really confusing sentence that maybe you'll think is deep and then maybe you'll take it seriously. So here it is, okay? Here it is, just for you. The present will be your past, which will be present in your future. Okay, I'll make sure you can all see this. Okay, this is as deep as I go right here. The present, what you're doing right now in terms of your dating life and living the life, will be your past. That is, one day you're going to look back on it, which will be present. That is, it's going to show up in your future. Okay? So here's what I'm saying. For those of you who aren't interested in, preparing for some future relationship, I'm so sure that's going to happen to me. All I'm saying is this. What you're doing now is going to follow you around. Your relational past has a pesky way of showing up at the most inopportune times. And since you're single, since I'm to singles, I just want you to know that, because a lot of your married friends, nobody told them. So they weren't ready for it when it happened. So now you're wiser because now you know that. Let me tell you something else. See, I've been doing this a long, long time, been a pastor a long, long time, and I've talked to many couples married, couples trying to get married, engaged couples, living together couples, problem couples, everything. I've never ever talked to a married couple that had a marriage problem. What I've discovered is that people with problems get married. And then they have a troubled marriage. But when you dig down, you realize, oh, you don't have a marriage problem. You have two single people problems that combined in a marriage. Because what they discovered, but nobody told them, but you're going to be so much smarter because I'm telling you, is that their single people problems went with them to the altar, and their single people problems got in a marriage, and then they thought they had marriage problems. See, a marriage problem is simple. Nobody comes into counseling for a marriage problem, because a marriage problem is, do we squeeze the toothpaste at the bottom, in the middle, or do we have our own? So you don't have to make an appointment with anybody to figure that out. Do we have one checkbook or two? Those are marriage problems. But what happens is married people come into marriage with things in their past that they think, oh, no, once I say I do, it's all over. And they drag their past, which used to be their present, into their future. And I just want you to know that that's a reality. And so what you're doing now, even if you're only 18 or 19 or 20 years old, it matters. And I just want to give you a heads up about that. Now, here's the other thing married people do that's just kind of crazy. And so I love talking to you about this. The reason married people get into so much trouble when they get married is they believe a myth. And nobody told them what I'm telling you. And so I'm going to tell you, so you're going to be the wiser for this as well. This is one of those things that when I hear people tell their story, I think, Didn't you know? And the myth that they buy into, it's called the right person myth. We'll put this up here. Here's what it is, the right person myth. The right person myth goes like this. If I marry the right person, everything will be all right. If I marry the right person, everything will be all right. Let's just say that together. If I marry the right person, everything will be all right. Another version goes like this. When I meet the right person, everything will be all right. Let's just say that together. When I meet the right person, everything will be all right. What they didn't know is this, is that while they were looking for the right person, thinking when I meet the right person, everything will be all right, when they met the right person was doing the same thing. And they didn't know it. The other person they met was looking for the right person. So these two people looking for the right people meet each other. It's like, oh, I've met the right person. The other person's going, I've met the right person. Everything's going to be all right. Now, here's what happens. Do you know how the right people know they've met the right people? Chemistry. It's like, oh, we just talk for hours, and I just think about him all the time, and I think about her all the time, and I can't keep my mind off of him, and he can't keep his mind and other things off of me, and it's just like there's just like this chemistry, you know. There's just chemistry. And so here's what happened, married people. Here's what happens, single people to married people. So these people, they get together, and they, you know, and they have this way of thinking that says, hey, you know, never buy a car without driving it first, right? And you never buy a pair of shoes without trying them on first. So they get the whole intimacy thing going, and the physical thing going, and the sex thing going. And it's like, oh, it's just the greatest thing in the world. There's so much chemistry. And so they're convinced, I've met the right person. And since I've met the right person, everything's going to be all right. That's right. And the other person's thinking the same thing. And then here's what happens, single people. These people with all this incredible chemistry, and let me tell you what the other thing they thought, because you need to know this. When they, you know, got together and everything's just great, they believed, here's what they believed. They believed, they won't admit this, but you ask them later. They believe no one has ever loved like this before. I mean, it was like, you know, not my mama, not my grandmama, nobody on TV, nobody in the movies, not my friends. When they're together, they just stare and they go out to eat and they drink and they have fun. And there's like, it's just like, we were made for each other. You're my soulmate. And they really believe this is a unique, one of a kind. Nobody can match this kind of love. They are absolutely convinced of that. And so they get together and they get married. The problem is all they had was chemistry. They didn't know very much about relationship because they thought if I meet the right person, I don't have to be good at relationship. They're going to be good at relationship. That's why they're the right person. I don't have to like be patient because she's never going to do anything that's going to make me have to be patient, right? So they get together, and guess what happens, single people? You need to know this. This heads up. You're going to be so much smarter. They get together, and then they get married, and then they have problems. Guess what kind of problems they have? Not chemistry problems. They have relationship problems because they're in a relationship. And they didn't do anything to prepare for the relationship. They just thought love will keep us alive. You know, they just thought the passion is enough. And so you know what happens? They get into this relationship and all of a sudden there's trouble. And guess what starts to suffer? The chemistry. And where it's been so passionate and so sexual and so awesome, suddenly that part of the relationship begins to die. And the guy's really confused because the guy thinks, well, if we have more sex, that'll fix it. Because guys think like sex is a wrench. Hey, we can fix it. You know, that's what guys think, okay? And the girl's like, that's not how it works. And all of a sudden, there's all this tension and there's all this confusion. And the very thing, I'm telling you, you're going to be so much smarter. The very thing that made them think, oh, it's one of a kind love and we're forever. And you know, all of a sudden, the very thing that held them together, the chemistry, it starts to die because they're no good at relationship. Because they thought it was the right person myth. If I meet the right person, everything's going to be all right. So then somebody in the relationship, generally the woman, gets the bright idea. I know what would bring us closer together. Let's have a baby. Oh, that's brilliant. That's it. Let's bring another life into a dysfunctional relationship. And the guy thinks, well, that'll require sex. That's a great idea, okay? So then they decide we're going to have a baby and that's going to fix our relationship. Now, single people, I know why you're laughing. You're laughing like, Who would be so stupid? I know married people, this is how they think. Now, let me pause just a second and say this. While I'm telling you all this silly stuff, the married people listening are going, they don't even dare look at each other. It's like, and they're thinking, how did he know? Let me tell you how I know. My IQ is so superior to the no. Let me tell you how I know, okay? This is very important if you're single. I'm telling you, I know I'm being silly, but this is so important. You see, the reason I know all of this is not because I'm smart. It's because as unique as you think you are and as special as you think your relationship is, it's not. Okay? It's a well-worn, predictable path. And I want to keep some of you off of it. You know, sometimes people say to me, they say, Andy, I feel like when you're preaching, you're talking right to me. Let me tell you why you think I'm talking right to you. Because you're not that different than everybody else. We are all I hate to burst your bubble, we are all very, very much the same. We are human beings. I mean, we have so much in common. And again, when we begin to think we are something unique and we're something special and we're on some unique path, no. It's not true. It's just not true. So then this couple, they decide we're gonna have a baby and we're gonna fix it. Now, here's another statistic. You need to know this, okay? There are 2 or 3 times in the life of a man when he's most vulnerable, a married man, when he's most tempted to have an affair. Guess what one of the top 2 are? When his wife is pregnant. And you think, scum. Who would go out and have an affair when his wife's pregnant trying to fix the relationship? And I'm telling you, it happens all the time because here's how men think. Now, guys, okay, week 3, you don't want to miss any of this, okay? But week 3, we're going to go here big time. I'm just going to kind of a little heads up. Week 3. Here's what guys think. Guys think, well, I got needs. Okay, guys, heads up. We're going to talk about this in detail later, okay? Sex is not a need. Water, you need water. Food, you need food. In certain climates, you need shelter. But guys, check this out later because don't take my word for it, okay? Check it out later. A man, don't take my word for it, can go his entire life and never have sex and not die or even get sick. I know, you just check it out for yourself, okay? But in our minds, we think, oh, no. So guys make terrible decisions. And then here's what happens, single people. You need to know this. So now we got people who didn't really know much about relationship, but the passion was there now. The passion is gone. Now we got a baby, nobody's getting any sleep. And then he's at work one day, and he looks up. And guess who he sees? The right person. And he realizes, do you know what's wrong with my marriage? I married the wrong person, but I just met the right person. She's at the gym. Speaking of Jim, here's Jim. Jim, we went to high school together. Remember, Jim, we used to date. Remember prom? And she realizes, you know what the problem is? I married the wrong person. And off they go again. Do you know why most second marriages have a higher failure rate than first marriages? Single people, you need to know this. Because married people are kind of stupid. Because they do the very same thing again, expecting different results. Because they buy into the right person myth. And you remember that thing about, you wouldn't drive a car without trying it out first, or buy a pair of shoes without trying them out first? Do you know what ends up in these kinds of marriages? You got 2 used cars and 2 used pairs of shoes. And they don't know what to do with each other. And they wonder what happened. I just want you to know something. It does not have to be that way. That does not have to be your future. The handwriting is not on the wall. There is something different and there is something better. And our culture doesn't celebrate it, and our culture doesn't give it any airtime, and I'll tell you why. It's not because our culture is against happy marriages. It's not because our culture is against successful relationships. The problem is they're boring. If somebody were to do a reality TV show of my marriage, no one would watch it. But I love my marriage. But it's just kind of the same old extraordinary thing day after day after day after day, okay? You don't want to watch a movie about 2 happily married people. Be like, how long is this going to go on? They just hold hands, walk around the park, jog together, have dinner at home every night. And who wants to watch married people have sex? I mean, it's like us. We don't want to do that. So the problem is this. The great marriages and the great relationships, it gets no airplay because honestly, it's just not that entertaining. So of course our culture that's so entertainment crazy, and I'm not against that, our culture of course highlights all the trouble and all the drama and all the affairs and all the junk. And if you want to entertain yourself with that, that's absolutely fine. But please, single people, do not believe for a minute that any of that reflects reality. And you, I'd never buy into that, but I'm telling you, if you date with the mindset of if I find the right person, the right things will happen. If I date the right person, if I meet the right person, everything will be all right. You have bought into the fairy tale idea that is the lie that we're told over and over and over. It just doesn't work that way. There is a better way. So as we begin this series, remember, this is just the introduction. As we begin this series, I want to give you a big idea that I want you to begin to get your heads around and your hearts around. And I want you to begin to think about, because we're going to come back to this over and over and over. Here's the contrast. The idea is this. Instead of finding the right person, the real issue is, are you becoming the right person? This is huge. It's not a cute little statement. It's not a cute little phrase. This is the whole deal right here. This is what nobody told you. This is what nobody told most married people. This is why they date the way they did. It's why they do the things they do. It's why they wake up on the other side of marriage or wake up on the other side of a long-term relationship and go, what happened to the passion? You know, what happened to the pizzazz? You know, what happened to the fire? What happened to the fuel? You know, what happened to all the great stuff? Why are we like roommates? And it's because they went out trying to find the right person. They never spent any energy, any time becoming the right person. This is the new approach. This needs to be your new rule, and I'm telling you, it is life changing. When I was preparing for this series, I did several things to try to get ready for this. And one of the things I did is I met with 9 or 10 single people who are like thick in the whole dating thing. And I got them in a room and I said, okay, let's just talk frankly about dating. Okay, you know, it's been a long time. And so I want to understand. I want to understand terms. I want to understand experiences. I want to understand expectations. And I thought I understood all this, but I just, want to hear it firsthand from some really neat people. And one of the young ladies in that room told this story. And I feel like it explains and illustrates this point better than any other thing I've heard. She said, grew up in a religious home. Kind of had the Sunday school background and, the Bible and Jesus and God and that whole thing. Went to school, graduated, came to Atlanta and immersed herself in kind of the singles dating culture. And she said, it's not that I quit believing what I used to believe. It's just that I kind of took all of that and I just put it on the back burner. It wasn't like I had some religious epiphany, one night, Jesus is not the Son of God. It wasn't anything like that. She just said, I decided in terms of my dating and my relationships with guys, I'm just not factoring that in. So she's living the life, doing her deal, having fun, things that she, looked back on and said she wished she hadn't done. Anyway, so she's going along. So she's at some gathering. I don't know exactly what it was. And in this gathering were some people she didn't know, and she began to meet some people, and she met this guy. And she said this guy was like the total package. Those are her words. The looks, the job, the personality, everything. And she said as she began to talk to him and as she began to listen to him talk, it became very apparent he was a Christian. And not only was he a Christian that was figuring out and committed to living out his faith in his job, living out his faith in his relationships, and living out his faith in his dating relationships. I mean, he was very overt about that. Mature, good looking, everything. And she was like, wow. And she said as she talked to him, it brought back memories of some of the things that she'd kind of put on the back burner as she'd immersed herself in this dating culture. She said that really wasn't working out very well for her. Well, anyway, she left that party or that gathering just wow, this guy. She went home. I don't know if it was the next day or, a few days later. She goes home and she starts telling her mom about this guy. She's going on and on how good looking he is and he's got this and that and he's a Christian and on and on and on. And she said that her mother turned to her and said, sweetheart, the problem is a guy like that is not looking for a girl like you. She said she literally fell to the floor in a puddle of tears. And she cried and she cried and she cried because she knew her mom was exactly right. And she said that was a defining moment for her as a single person. A defining moment where she decided, you know what? She's right. That guy that I'm kind of looking for, that I would never admit to myself I'm looking for, he's not looking for somebody like me. She said in that moment, she decided, life change, priorities changing, values changing, friendships changing. I'm going a different direction with my life and how I date. Here's the question I want to leave you with tonight as we wrap this up in just a few minutes. Are you who? Are you who the person you are looking for is looking for? Are you who the person that you're looking for is looking for? In other words, you see, single people, if you were to sit down, you could come up with a list. I want him this way and her this way, and here's what I'd like her to have in her past. I don't want her to have this in her past. Don't want him to have this in his past. Don't want to have this kind of addiction. Don't want him spending his time on this. In other words, you know ideally what you're looking for. The question is, are you who the person you're looking for is looking for? Another way of asking this is this. Are you becoming? Are you being intentional? Are you leaning into? Are you trying to become the person that the person you're looking for is looking for? Or are you just playing the game of, well, someday I'm going to magically run into, I'm going to magically, mysteriously, providentially just meet the right person. And if I meet the right person, the right things will happen. It just doesn't work that way. It's a myth. That the correct approach, the approach that will serve you so well, is to decide, I'm not just hunting and I'm not just seeking. I am intentionally becoming. I want to be the person that the person I'm looking for is ultimately looking for.